Now, Olivia, we're going to visit the Museum of the Order of St John. We're going to meet curator Tom Folkes and we're going to have our own guided tour.
Sounds ideal. Hi Tom, nice to meet you.
Pleasure. We're now standing in the Order Gallery, which tells the story of the Order of St John from its foundation in the 11th century through its slow retreat westwards across the Mediterranean until the invasion of Napoleon into Malta in 1798 when they departed. So all the objects in this gallery relate to that period in history.
I'm looking at the cannon there,
Yes.
It looks interesting.
This cannon was given by King Henry VIII to the Order of St John. It was taken by the Order to fight against the Ottoman Turks. Eventually they lost it to the Ottoman Turks, who then took this cannon for their own fights. It was lost off the coast of Cyprus. This was under the sea for 300 years, and then in 1908, dredging brought this cannon up, and then in 1974, when Cyprus was granted independence, this cannon travelled back to London, and it was presented back to the Order of St John's.
That suit of armour, are you telling me that somebody actually wore that in the heat of Rhodes?
They did indeed, yes. I don't think it would have been very pleasant being a Knight of St John. But yeah, 30-degree heat. And that chainmail, it's incredibly heavy. It's incredibly difficult to lift up. People went very young, they would have travelled on the galleys, they would have learned their trade, and certainly by the time they were teenagers, they'd probably be fighting. You had to prove appropriate aristocratic birth and lineage to be able to join the Order of St John. You'd have to go 7 generations back, your appropriate blue blood, and you would bring a proof of nobility with you. If you didn't have that appropriate noble birth, then generally you wouldn't be accepted, although certain exceptions were made if there was exceptional talent.
Okay, yeah.
There is a rather spectacular painting that we have on display in another gallery by Caravaggio. Caravaggio was made a Knight of St John. He didn't have that noble birth, but he could paint a nice picture. So I think people are often quite dumbfounded that it's here on display. This is a portrait bust of Grand Master Jean de la Valette, who was the victor at the Siege of Malta in 1565. He was an incredibly ruthless and strategic leader of his forces, and following the Great Siege, his victory was celebrated throughout Europe, and this bust was made as a diplomatic gift to be given to him following his victory. It's a relatively recent addition to the collection, but a spectacular thing for us to have on display.
Piece.
This is the chapter hall. This was constructed in 1903 as an extension to the 1504 St John's Gate, where meetings of chapter, the governing body of the Order of St John, take place.
Wow.
It still functions in the same way today.
And the heraldry round the...
These are all the English priors of the Order, so the head of the Order in England from its foundation in the mid-12th century, right through to the present day, just over here. And the current Grand Prior of the Order in England is Richard, Duke of Gloucester, the Queen's cousin, whose sculpture is downstairs on display. We are standing in the Priory Church of the Order of St John. This is the remains of the original church that was built here in the 12th century. Today, this building functions essentially as a private chapel for the Order of St John, so order ceremonies and services are held here. This is the crypt. This is really the star of the museum's buildings.
And is this room open to the public in general?
It's open on guided tours, so we have guided tours on Tuesdays, Fridays and Saturdays at 11 and 6:30. People can just turn up and come for a wander around the buildings with a very experienced and knowledgeable guide.